Hello and welcome to a long overdue edition of the Puck Junk Podcast. Sal Berry here, along with Tim, aka The Real DFG on Twitter. And today we're going to talk a little bit about, the coaching change chaos, some new hockey cards, maybe a couple of other things. Tim, you wanna start with hockey cards this episode?
Sure, we can start with hockey cards.
So what did you buy? You bought some new stuff recently.
Yeah, we picked up the new 16-17 O-Pee-Chee Platinum Hockey, and we usually do the Platinum every year because, as some people know, my wife is in love with shiny things, and so can't get more shiny than O-Pee-Chee Platinum.
Can't get more shiny than your head. Oh, sorry, I didn't.
Well, yeah. It's kind of, there's a glare on it right now. You can kind of see from the fluorescent light, but yes. So this year's, here's the thing. I like it. I like it every year. It wasn't like extremely over the top or anything. Basically you're looking at more or less a parallel version of the base O-Pee-Chee cards. They do sort the numbers a little differently, a few other things, but if you took the if you took like the base O-Pee-Chee and made them really super shiny, like chrome like, that's pretty much what you'd have out of Platinum. They also have parallels in there as well, like they've been doing in the last few years. They have the rainbow parallels that are kind of hard to figure out whether or not rainbow. However, this year, and I don't know if they did this last year too, but I don't remember them doing it, but this year they marked on the card if it actually is a parallel or not. So if you look at the rainbow one, it actually says rainbow rather than having to hold it sideways in the light.
Yeah, and it kind of needed that because you needed to hold it sideways in the light, and I actually liked the rainbow parallels better. And I kind of wish the whole set was like that. At least the last few times I've bought O-Pee-Chee Platinum.
And that's exactly it. You're looking at it and you're like, I'm not sure if this is rainbow or not. So you have to hold like the entire stack of cards together and see that there's one that has a little different shine to it. Has kind of like the oil spill like shine to it. So,
that's actually
but they're marked on the backs now. So they show whether or not it's a rainbow parallel or not. And then, of course, colored parallels are all marked. So you've got things like ice blue tracks parallels and the rainbow orange parallels and I can't remember them all. Rainbow orange, red prism, seismic gold. Whole bunch of different ones. We pulled a few of them. We didn't get all representation of the parallels out of the two boxes we got, but we got quite a few. Some pretty decent ones out of there.
Two boxes.
Go ahead.
So, like, a box is 20 packs, roughly about $80 a box. So you're looking at, at least that's the online price. So that's roughly $4 a pack. Then you get 4 cards per pack. So you're roughly at like $1 a card.
Yeah, it's about $1 a card.
$1 a card. And so I think one of my issues that I've had with O-Pee-Chee Platinum, I've had 2 problems with it. One is that it just doesn't feel like $1 a card type of product. And the other thing is that the collation has been, at least when I've bought it, it's been terrible. Like, I remember buying 3 boxes and like just getting doubles and doubles and doubles and still needing like out of 150 cards, I'm thinking a couple of years ago, so I don't remember if it was 150 cards and 50 rookies or 200 or whatever, but I know that the collation was just terrible. Like, in 3 boxes, I still didn't have a set, and I probably had as many doubles as I did cards in the set, so I don't know. I just kind of steer clear of... It's a set that I don't like to build. I'm wondering what your collation was like in the 2 boxes that you got.
Well, 2 years ago we had the same issue, but a part of that was probably because we bought we probably opened 5 boxes a couple years ago when it was, I think that was probably the first year that they did it. And it was kind of like that, but we bought two boxes from one case and another box from another case from somewhere else and another box from another case from somewhere else. So I think that was part of our issue. Last year we didn't have that problem, but granted we didn't open very much. These two boxes, no doubles, not one.
Wow.
So out of the two boxes, trying to put the base set together with the rookies and the high numbers and the regular base cards. I think we're about 80 cards short of a full base set. So, I mean, considering you only get 80 cards in a box, and a lot of the are going to be parallel cards and inserts, and there's one hand signed on card autograph in each box too. Which the two that we got, in case anybody was wondering, we got your buddy Nick Schmaltz from the Blackhawks, and it's on card.
Nice.
And then the other one we got was Nikita Soshnikov from the Maple Leafs. The wrong Maple Leafs rookie, but what are you gonna do? So, did
you have like that split second of like you saw a Maple Leaf rookie and you were like that false hope?
Well, the interesting thing is the first Nick Schmaltz auto was in the very first pack on the top, and I thought the autograph is never on the top. I mean, that was really bizarre. But the box was all right. I liked a lot of the inserts we got. They have it's called Puck Personas, and it's a die cut card. It's shaped like a hockey puck. It's really small. It's actually about the size of a Hostess Ding Dong, rather than an actual hockey puck. But it was interesting. It was something different. And most of the inserts are die cut. It's to some extent. They have something called Platinum Phenoms that I don't really know what the theme of that is. The two we got were like Zetterberg and Dylan Strome, but they also have NHL logo crest cards, where it's basically, it looks like a shield. It's shaped like a shield, has the NHL logo and a player on the front. We actually pulled Lemieux out of that box, so I was kind of happy with that because they have old players and new players. But the second box we opened, again, it was Lemieux, that logo crest, so that was good for me. But the second box we opened, so the left pack had the auto in the first box. The right pack on the top had the auto in the second box, and it was the Soshnikov one. So I was like, wow, that was the anticlimactic. The first two packs we opened, and we already got the auto. But I saw that it was the Maple Leaf card. The funny part is, as we started going through that box, we pulled an Austin Matthews rainbow parallel. We pulled a Patrick Laine rainbow parallel. We pulled a Kasperi Kapanen retro rainbow parallel out of that one. So, I mean, we were hitting like all the big rookies, and we got Matthew Tkachuk retro rainbow parallel as well. Not only that, we got a what's his name? The guy from the rookie from Provorov. We got a Provorov seismic gold parallel, and like all the rookies were in this one box.
Wow.
So that was kind of weird, but it was still two pretty good boxes. I mean, here's the thing: $1 a card, it seems a little cheap. Factor in what you're getting insert wise. Maybe those inserts might be more, which would bring the price down. I'm gonna say, I don't know, 75 cents is probably a good bet on what individual just base cards would be versus what the overall collation would be of the inserts and in parallels and all of that kind of stuff. So, I mean, this is probably not a set for set builders necessarily, and it's probably not a set for somebody that's looking for major super uber mojo hits. But for a mid-range collector that's looking for something that's kind of nice with the potential of some pretty decent autographs and some nice parallel cards. I mean, it's $80. I mean, anymore, $80 seems kind of cheap.
Yeah, it kind of does nowadays, and that's kind of funny and also kind of sad. But it's something I might scoop up a set of. Because I like the fact that it's kind of like an update to the O-Pee-Chee set. Because I like the O-Pee-Chee set. I wish they would do it in 2 series, like an Upper Deck Series 1, Upper Deck Series 2. Like, I'd love that. Um, and, I mean, I know back in, I think it was 0809, they did 0809 and 2009-10, they did an update set, and 0809 they did the update set in packs, and I don't think it was really successful, but that's a story for another time.
Yeah.
But this this set, I don't know, and then one autograph per box. I mean, I like autographs. They are on card, like you said. I guess, like I said, if it's something you're gonna buy, it's something you're probably gonna like, and if it's something you're not gonna buy, you're probably not gonna buy. And I guess like I said, I just want a fighting chance of building a set, and but then again, that's what I'm after, and I understand that people just want hits, or people just want parallels, or it sounds like there were a lot of rookie cards. Like, it wasn't just like one in every 4 packs or whatever, like Young Guns or something.
Yeah, there were a lot more. I mean, O-Pee-Chee usually throws rookies out a little more than normal in their flagship set.
Oh yeah,
But
that's true.
you know, here's the thing: if you're gonna build one of these,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to need at least 3 boxes, and you may be short if you're trying to do the whole base set with the rookies. You're going to need at least 3 boxes, and my recommendation is buy them out of the same case, because I think you'll do better with the collation that way.
Right.
But if you pick a box up here from this guy and then buy another box from some other guy,
Mm-hmm.
then who knows? Who knows? You might end up like a few years ago when everybody had the same number O-Pee-Chee cards. Everything ended in a 3, 5, or 8, or 0, 2, or 9, or whatever it was. Yeah.
Yeah, that was hilarious. So also in the news, so okay, the playoffs are going on right now. We're probably not going to talk too much about them just because we're recording this during some playoff games, before other playoff games. But I want to pick your brain on the coaching carousel, as they call it. We had a couple of guys let go. We had a couple of guys hired. I mean, I guess we could. Some of this is kind of old news already, but I still think it's interesting to talk about, because we know we're not done with coaching changes as teams get eliminated from the playoffs and don't meet those expectations. Like, sorry, your team didn't win the Stanley Cup, we're firing you. But the Golden Knights, Gerard Gallant as their head coach, and the first thing I want to say is just, I am so glad that the Golden Knights did not hire Daryl Sutter as their head coach, because I think he would have been a total buzzkill as their head coach, because, Daryl is a serious dude. I mean, he smiled twice, once in 2012, once in 2014. I think he was lifting the cup when he was smiling.
I think it was only a partial smile, though.
Yeah, it was kind of a half smile. Like, okay, I'll allow myself this opportunity to smile. But I mean, shit, I remember him when he was the coach of the Blackhawks, and he was a serious dude back then. And that's okay to be serious, and I'm not saying like you want your players like running around all willy-nilly and living it up in the Vegas lifestyle, but I just can't see him. I don't know. He's actually funny in press conferences. He can be funny. He's interesting in press conferences. Whenever I could catch him in them, I'll watch him, because he's serious, but he's very to the point, and he's very cordial. So he doesn't come off as a jerk, but he just doesn't strike me as I don't know, just not the guy I'd want as my coach in Vegas. So that's why I'm glad that it was Gerard Gallant, though I would have gone after Ken Hitchcock, but that's just me.
See, it's interesting that you say that, because Ken Hitchcock, I think, is a good coach when you have a team that has most of the dominoes are set, and there only needs to be a couple more pieces put in place. And Hitchcock flourishes in those environments. I don't know necessarily that building a team from the bottom up is where he would, and I could be wrong on that, because I don't know everything there is to know about Ken Hitchcock, but
Right.
just from my experience of seeing him and when he's successful, it seems like when he gets thrown into a situation like Dallas, where they're right there. I mean, They just got to tweak a couple things, and they're back in the playoffs, and they're, competing for a cup again. So I don't necessarily think that he would have been the right choice.
Okay.
I think of the guys that were out there that have the coaching experience without jumping into AAL guys or college coaches and starting fresh, Gallant was probably the best choice they made.
And is that maybe because he's an NHL coach, but he's not yet a lifer like a Hitchcock or like a Sutter, someone who's just been around for a long time in the NHL?
Well, not only that, he's already gone through expansion once. I mean, he was the assistant coach in Columbus when they were expansion team back in 2000. And it's like to have to build a team from scratch. And now he's gifted the expansion rules to make a team successful right out of the box, rather than in the old days like it was where people were getting everybody's dregs. Now at least they're able to get high draft in the regular entry draft, and they're able to get quite a few unprotected players from the 30 teams that are out there come the expansion drafts after the cup final. So, I mean, out of the box, they're probably going to have, at least on paper, the most competitive expansion team that there's been in that I can remember.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, they'll have a lineup. Let's put it this way: they'll have a couple lines on their team with players you've actually heard of.
Okay, yeah, that's a good point. And bringing the coach on obviously at this point, so he can have some input on the players that they pick. Yeah, I think that's exciting, and I think that I'll be glad when the expansion draft happens, so that we can stop seeing all these articles in my Facebook feed about potential fantasy draft for expansion, because I'm so tired of, like, if the expansion draft was tomorrow, who would be on the Vegas team? And it's always a picture of Marc-Andre Fleury.
Of course it is.
It is, right? Even though, I mean, you pointed out his no trade clause or whatever, but I'm tired of people speculating, especially when the rules weren't established. At least now we know what the rules are.
And I still don't really understand. I still don't really understand what the rules are, because I get how many players of each position you're supposed to, but then when you get past that, they say, well, guys with no trade clauses and no movement clauses, you have to protect unless they waive their rights to be protected. Guys that are in their first year or second year have to be or aren't subject to the draft at all. Okay, so everybody's talking about the goalie controversy in Pittsburgh. Well, here you go. You got Fleury, who's protected because he's got a no movement clause. You've got Matt Murray, so he's exempt. And one of the rules is you have to leave one goalie unprotected. So who do you leave? You got two goalies on your roster. Both of them are pretty much exempt. What do you do? So either Fleury have to waive his no trade clause, or they're somehow going to have to get somebody bumped up and put them available. Who would that be? Would that be Tristan Jarry, who's been sitting on the bench backing up Fleury since Murray's hurt? He hasn't played enough games. He's not eligible.
Right. Or you just,
do you pull
just because
what do you do? Like in the old days,
just because a player is exempt doesn't mean that you have to protect them.
So are they still subject to the draft, though? Because if they're exempt from the draft, they can't be drafted. That's my interpretation of that.
Right, but
I guess maybe I'm wrong.
I'm just saying, but if you have to offer a goalie, then you have to offer a goalie. And I think what's going to happen is you're going to see a lot of trades happen before then. They're
going to have to happen quick, because the expansion draft, they have to have the in with their protected players within 3 days of the end of the Stanley Cup Finals. So there's not a whole lot. That's even before the free agency is up.
Right.
So you got a very small window of opportunity there. Look, think about the old days when they did expansion drafts like this. Guys, before they knew that there were going to be expansion drafts, teams would pick up and sign third string and fourth string goalies to their roster, keep them there, make sure they played enough games to qualify for the draft, and leave them as the unprotected players, so that who was going to get drafted? Well, it was going to be guys that were never going to get signed in the first place, and move them on. I mean, Florida got lucky. Florida ended up with Van Beesbrook. They got lucky because there were a ton of players that were out there.
The Canucks acquired Van Beesbrook to put him solely for the purpose of putting him in the expansion draft.
Right.
Like, a lot of people
look at the career he had.
Was drafted from the Rangers, and he wasn't. He was drafted from the Canucks. The Rangers traded him to the Canucks. The Canucks wanted to keep Kirk McLean as their first-string goalie, and, they didn't care if their second stringer, if they kept them or lost them, because, either, and I don't know who their backup was that year, but I don't remember, but they were probably like, okay, well, hey, if we end up with Van Beesbrook as the backup, awesome, and if not, then we still have our goalie tandem from the previous year, and so that was their strategy.
Right, and that's exactly it. There's a whole thing where we picked up this goalie, put him in, made sure he's covered what he actually needed to cover, so that if they're going to draft somebody, we're going to keep our guys we want. They can't touch them. Or look at all the trades that would go down and the deals that would go down. They'll call you, the other team calls up and says, hey, if you agree not to draft so-and-so, we'll give you $500,000 and these two guys from
it's
our AHL team.
It's actually it's going to be for players. It can't really be for money anymore. After the Lindros trade, the NHL decided, we can't let money just be the driving force in a trade. So you won't see that sort of thing anymore. But you will.
But it's happened in the past. I mean, it's something that's happened in the past.
But now it's going to be kind of like, hey, if you don't draft our goalie who we have to leave unprotected, we will give you this player, this forward or this defenseman or this prospect or something. So yeah, those backroom deals are exciting. I actually, a couple months ago, I wrote an article for the Hockey News called Draft Tricks, and it was about all the funny stuff that the GMs would do to try to keep their players, as many of their players as they could. And one thing that was funny was there was a player in the 90s named Frederick Chabot. Do you remember him? He was a goaltender.
Frederick Chabot. I remember John Chabot.
Nope, John Chabot was.
I don't think I remember Frederick Chabot.
Hang on, let me just look him up real quick. Make sure that I'm not forgetting his. Yeah, Frederick Chabot. Yeah, so there he is on Hockey DB. So anyway, and he played a total of 32 games in the NHL. And what was funny about him, and I actually talked to him for this article, and he was actually for a guy, so he had been in 5 of the expansion drafts in the 90s. And he was drafted, and I wrote this article, and I can't quite remember. Actually, I could just look at show trades. I think he was taken 3 times. Yeah, he was claimed by Tampa Bay. He was claimed by the Nashville Predators. And then he was claimed by the Blue Jackets. So he was in 5 expansion drafts. He was claimed 3 times. And I said to him, do you know that you have the record for being in the most expansion drafts? And he chuckles, and in his French-Canadian accent, he's like, that does not surprise me. And he was actually very jovial about it. And what's funny, though, is that he was kind of like, you ever see that thing where they put like a dollar bill on a string and then somebody goes to grab it and then they pull the string really quick and the dollar bill jumps away? It was kind of like that, because like Montreal kept reacquiring him, it seemed just for the purpose to put him in next year's expansion draft.
Yeah.
And yet he never played for.
I'm sure there's others like him.
Well, yeah, but he has the record for that. I mean, he was in like almost every expansion draft in the 90s, and he was picked 3 times. But then even like and then he played with the Kings for a little while, and then it was like, he'd always just be in just enough games to qualify, because I think like one season he played like 10 or 11 games, and that was just like, there was something like a 10 game threshold, and he played in like 11 games, so then he was just experienced enough to be in the expansion draft. And yeah, you do see a lot of that stuff. I mean, I remember back in 92 when the Blackhawks had that goaltender, Ray LeBlanc, who was doing really good in the Winter Olympics in Albertville. Do you remember that? Do you remember that guy? Yeah, so
he was picked up for that sole purpose.
He was on the Blackhawks. He was in their minor league team. They had a logjam of goaltenders that year because they had Belfour, they had Hasek, they had Jimmy Waite, they had a lot of bodies. They had a lot of netminders. So they ended up loaning him Ray LeBlanc to the Olympic team, and then when he came back, the Blackhawks said, "Oh, we're going to reward him for his good Olympic performance and start him in the game." But really, it was just to get him that one game experience, because at the time you had to offer up a goalie who had one game of experience.
Yeah.
So I mean,
so there you go. And you're not going to give up Schick, and you're not going to give up Belfour, and you're not going to give up Jimmy Waite. So who's the low man on the totem pole? There you go.
Right. Although actually, then they did, but then they did trade Dominic Hasek for Christian Root. Well, it ended up being for Christian Root too. It was a 3-way trade that fall, and they didn't have to. Like they managed to not lose Belfour, Waite, or Hasek, and then they traded away Hasek for like a bag of broken hockey sticks, and the rest is history.
That's probably better than the rusty nails that the Penguins got for Jágr when they got rid of him. So.
Oh yeah, well, but at least Jágr got to be a great player with the Penguins. Hasek didn't reach his potential till after he left the Blackhawks. So
that is true.
Anyway, so it should be exciting to see what kind of team they build under Gerard Gallant. Any thoughts on any of the other coaches? I mean, Tom Rowe gone in Florida. We probably saw that coming.
Until they made the Gallant announcement, I actually had the idea in the back of my head that they were going to rehire Gerard Gallant, and it was going to go back to kind of let's fix what we broke because we thought it was broke, but it really wasn't broke kind of thing. And obviously that didn't happen, but Florida, I'm sorry. Florida's a mess.
Well,
they're just a mess.
They got Dale Talon back to right the ship. So
yeah, but the thing is, Dale Talon never left. He was bumped upstairs to the stupid position of director of player personnel, which really holds no power and has no purpose. And instead of being the GM, because they never really took the GM label off of Tom Rowe when he appointed himself as head coach of the team, and all of his functions were being done by all the other guys. So now you got Gallant in Vegas, and you got what's his name, Scott. Who's their player personnel guy? But he's in Vegas now too. They fired like everyone. I mean, everyone, all the way down to like the director of travel. These guys all got canned, and these were all the cogs of the wheel that brought Florida into the playoffs last year, and had 103 points in the regular season, the highest in franchise history. And then you come in, you lose a couple games, and all of a sudden, time to clean house. That's not how it works. And obviously they saw that, and the players didn't buy into Tom Rowe's crap. And so now here we are. And, he pointed fingers and put blame at all his high-priced players that are veterans that weren't living up to expectations. Well, how about putting the label on all of the guys you traded for that you expected them to come and make act? And then, oh, guess what? They didn't. You got rid of Goodbranson. That was the worst thing they ever did. And you hire a bunch of D-men that supposedly can move the puck up the ice. Now, granted, they had a lot of injuries this year, but so did a lot of teams. And a lot of those teams are in the playoffs. Boston had injuries left and right. The Penguins had injuries left and right. Washington dealt with some injuries. Tampa Bay obviously almost made the playoffs. They were a lot closer than Florida was, and they had tons of injuries. So, the Florida situation, I think it's a big mess. Talon's he has his hands full to get it at least back to where it was, where he spent all the time building the team up to be, only to have them tear it down in front of him. I'll just never, I don't know. I'm not a Florida fan, but I'm a hockey fan, and what they did to that team is horrible. It's just awful.
What do you think about the Kings getting rid of Sutter and Lombardi as the GM? Based on that, like, they were missing Jonathan Quick most of the season. They were making do with. Peter Budaj played admirably, but he's not Jonathan Quick.
Sutter's gone because they didn't make the playoffs.
But do you think that was fair because he didn't have Jonathan Quick? Nothing's fair. I get that, but
okay. Who set up the team? Who drafted them? Development in their AM. Okay, so here's the GM. The GMs can because of all the stupid deals that they have with players that aren't performing. Look at Gaborik's contract.
Mm-hmm.
It's ridiculous. It doesn't make any sense. It's huge. It has no business being huge. Ridiculous. And they're plagued with that on that team. And you're never going to be able to compete with the other teams in the league that have wisely used their money on the KG veteran and building up their junior teams. I shouldn't say junior, but their minors, their minor league teams, their AHL teams or whatever. And so that when these things happen, they can bring somebody up. I know I'm as a Penguins fan having 2 number 1 goaltenders, but there's a lot of good prospects that are out there that can be put into these systems and developed and brought up for experience when guys go down. We've seen it time and time again. A number 1 goalie who doesn't have strong backup goes down. The team it's a turtle flipped on its back. It has no idea what to do. You can't rely on just your goaltending to get you through an entire season. Yeah. Like you said, the backups, they played well in the situations that they're not Jonathan Quick.
Well, the trade for Bishop I thought was a really gutsy move, but it was too little. It was too late at that point.
Well, yeah, point of no return, and how are you going to right ship when now you have all these other issues? There were guys that they've spent all this money on that weren't getting ice time, and guys that they are spending tons of money on that are just underperforming. So I think for LA, it's going to be a fresh start with a new GM, new coach. Next year, is LA a playoff team? Maybe. I could see them having another year like they had this year and kind of falling back. But they're right there. They just need somebody to come in, right the ship, fix it, and they can go on from there.
How about in Dallas?
The Dallas situation. Yeah, the Dallas situation. Ken Hitchcock, I think he'll do fine.
Right, but everybody.
There's no doubt in my mind that Dallas will be there next year.
Well, okay,
no doubt.
But the thing is, and this is a really popular thing to say, so it's not like I'm the first person or will be the last person to point this out, but Dallas is really not great in goaltending. Like, you would think that.
Well, Dallas hasn't been great in goaltending.
But they haven't done anything about it. They've had those guys for a couple of years now, and they've had Niemi, and they've had not Pavlik, the other former Atlanta Thrasher, Kari Lehtinen, and it's like they're both guys that neither is a number 1 goalie, and they need one, and I think that they're going to have to do that, or they're not going to. Their situation's not going to improve. Like, Niemi is not the Niemi that won a Stanley Cup with Chicago, but then again, I think that honestly, a goalie that was marginally better than Cristobal Huet could have been the goalie for Chicago that year.
Well, I think Lettinen has. You just said his name, and I almost forgot it again.
Yeah, Kerry Lettinen and Anthony.
On his contract?
Yep.
Because, yeah. So I think Lettinen's got a year left on his contract. And signed, what, like a 3-year contract a couple years ago? So he probably has 1 year left. They're probably just waiting these contracts out till they're over with. Because you dish these guys off now, you're going to have to eat some of that, and it's going to be salary cap hit.
Right.
Wait till their contracts are up, let them go to free agency, disappear. Now what? But you're right. Who do they have to come in and replace them? So you're going to have to either trade one of those guys, throw them up in the expansion draft, let Vegas take one of them, or come up with some kind of deal where you can buy into a bunch of draft picks and start looking out there and seeing what you can do. But yeah, neither of those guys are the answer because they've shown that they're not the answer. So, who knows? Who else is available out there that a team's willing to take? Antti Ranta, the Rangers going to get rid of him? I mean,
probably
Lundqvist
not.
is back and healthy.
Yeah, I don't know.
I wouldn't think so. I mean, he was serviceable. He played all right.
Yeah, I mean, when
Lundqvist who else
faltered, Ranta did great.
Yeah. I don't know who else is out there. I mean, who's Bobrovsky's backup?
Oh,
Korpisalo, is that his name?
Yeah.
He's a young guy.
Yeah, I mean, he was.
Of him. These are guys that are just sitting on the bench warming up a spot. I'm trying to think of backup goalies that are out there that never play.
Well, okay, Darling plays, but he's in a contract year, so is he going to come back to the Blackhawks, or is he going to go to another team as the number one?
Yeah, well, there's another one.
Well, yeah, but actually,
in Washington, there's another one.
I think Scott Darling would avoid the. Well, no, I mean, getting back to Vegas, he had some personal problems with alcohol, and he played. I think he played minor league in Vegas, if I remember correctly, and that was actually part of the problem.
Oh, well, that's probably not the best. That wouldn't be the best option for him. What about? Well, we just talked about Ben Bishop.
No, wait, I'm sorry. Hang on.
Didn't the Kings only give him?
My bad. He never played for Vegas, but he. I think that would just probably, maybe not be the best place for him.
Dig up some old demons.
Yeah, I don't know.
I was saying, we just talked about Ben Bishop. Didn't the Kings only sign him to just till the end of the season? Because isn't he an unrestricted free agent?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So I mean, okay, so there's Ben Bishop that might be available.
That'd be a good.
Send him to Dallas.
Yeah,
that might be a good fit.
That'd be a hell of a good. I mean, Bishop is. I think he's. I mean, he's a tall goalie, but he's a really good goalie, and yeah, I'd like to see him. I mean, I'd like to see him finish the season without a groin injury.
Yeah, there you go. That's part of the problem.
Because that was part of the problem. And one of the things that has been said about goalies getting these groin injuries is because they're playing so damn much, where you're getting to this point where you have your starter playing 60, 70 games and your backup playing 10 games, and you can't do that anymore because there's just so much wear and tear on the body that you have to do. The backup has to get more games. And so I mean, you get him in a situation where he could have a backup that can play 30 games, maybe 25 games, and then maybe he could stay healthy all season and not have problems.
Well, that puts you also in a situation where now you need another goaltender as well. So,
well,
I mean, what if you could get Bishop for? What if you?
What's that?
You could get Bishop, and what if you could get Bishop for, instead of a 5-year deal, you could get him for I don't know, a 2-year deal or a 3-year deal. Do you then sign him and not worry so much about the injuries? I don't know.
As a player, I want
you would have to work that contract out.
I want a long-term deal as a player.
Right. I'm not a GM. This is why I'm not a GM of anything. I can't even be a GM of my own personal calendar in my phone. So
Yeah.
that's why I'm not a GM of a hockey team, because there's too many things that go into, into all these decisions and bringing guys in.
Hey, let's wrap it up with one more thing. I want to talk about the Zach Werenski injury that he got the other night. That really,
That's pretty wicked.
wow, dude. I mean, you see somebody get hit in the face, and then you see blood on the ice. I mean, dude, that is serious stuff. I'm getting a little tired of the look at how tough these hockey players are. They come back through injury. Actually, I understand why he did that. Obviously, his eye had swollen to the point where he couldn't see out of it, and he didn't play in the overtime, and he had that full face mask. I mean, yeah, that's awesome that he. I don't say that he got hurt, that he came back to play. I mean, we always admire players for doing that. But then again, if they took a puck to the face and didn't come back in the game, we wouldn't be like, oh, you wimp. You know what I mean?
Well, that's exactly it. This is another reason why I love this sport, is because these guys are, and they say it all the time, they're warriors. They go out there, they fight, they get hurt, they patch it up, rub some dirt on it, walk it off, and they're back out on the ice. You don't see that in any other sport. You don't. I mean, think about if you pick an athlete, you pick a sport. Let's say basketball. Okay,
Oh,
LeBron James. LeBron James to the eye. He's out for the next 3 years. I mean, that's the reality of it. A guy gets a hangnail in baseball, 9-day disabled list. Guys in football. Football's a rough sport. Guys are smashing each other, run full speed. That kind of thing. And I don't discount the whole concussion thing, but you get a lot of guys with just mystery injuries. Oh, he's got an ankle, he's got a knee. Most of the coaches, they don't even say really what it is. In hockey, that's why they're so secretive. They got an upper, he's got a lower body. They go to that point. In that game, I mean, the Werenski thing was overshadowed. Well, Bonino got hit earlier in the game in the eye. And that was overshadowed by the Werenski one, because when Bonino got hit, he took it up under the visor right in almost the same spot. And he immediately dropped his stick, dropped his gloves. You could see there was blood coming down the side of his face. And he over at the trainer and tried to skate off the ice and got off of there. And then he's gone for a few plays. Next thing you know, he's back on the bench, stitched up, and he's got the chin strap hooked onto the plastic one that goes on the visor piece.
Yeah.
So he has that on his face. But the Werenski thing, taking that puck up in the face, they focused more on that because he was down on the ice for so long. They never blew the whistle. The Penguins scored. Then he got up. And so the camera was right on him, and he was coming towards it, and the blood is pouring and pouring, and the camera's just on it. And I'm like, stop showing this. This is crazy. But just like a typical thing, hockey player, he goes in the back. Hey, Doc, throw a couple stitches in here. I got to get back out there. And that's what he did, until he realized his eye was swollen to the point where he couldn't see anymore. And then that was it, and he's done. Now, come to find out, he has a busted cheekbone, and he's out for the rest of the year. If it wasn't for Austin Matthews, Werenski would probably be the Rookie of the Year.
Agreed.
I mean, easily.
Yeah. Well,
here's the guy
too, but
he does. But look at how Werenski played. I mean, he's basically leading his team in points, and he's a defenseman. And
well, what's even more impressive is who he's playing for. John Tortorella.
Torts?
Yeah, and Torts does not. Okay, Torts does not. He's not the touchy-feely coach, even though he's more chill this year. This is the kinder, gentler John Tortorella. He's still not that touchy-feely type of coach. He's hardline. He reminds me a lot of Mike Keenan, if you remember Mike Keenan.
Yeah, but Mike Keenan never smiled. I don't think I saw John Tortorella a single moment that they showed him on the screen yesterday that he wasn't smiling or had a smirk on his face. And I couldn't tell if that was sarcasm. If he was like trying to roll his eyes, or he was trying to prevent himself from going crazy. And the fact that when Brian Boucher came out of out of the flat out called out Dubinsky, like
Mm-hmm.
while he was standing behind him.
Mm-hmm.
That to me, I was like, oh, I've never seen a coach like basically point out a player's flaws right there, 5 inches away
Wow.
from.
You think
So,
you think he
yeah, I mean,
heard?
Tortorella's he's a hardline guy,
Right.
but
So
even go ahead.
yeah. So Torts. I mean, okay. So if you're an 18-year-old rookie defenseman and John Tortorella is putting you in all different situations, you're doing a hell of a fine job. If he puts that much trust
Agreed,
into you, and so
definitely.
that's what impressed me about Werenski more than anything is that he's playing the big minutes. He's a young guy, and even though the Blue Jackets had their streak, but the Blue Jackets are not the Blackhawks. The Blackhawks, they bring in their young guys. They give them limited minutes. Sometimes they're healthy scratches. Sometimes they're fourth line. You know the way Quenneville moves them around. And here Tortorella is just basically throwing them in the fire. Like, yeah, you can handle it. So you're absolutely right. If there was no if Austin Matthews was not going to be rookie of the
Yeah,
year, it would probably be Werenski. Hell of a way to end a season, though. I mean, going down 0-3 to the Penguins, getting your cheekbone fractured. I mean, that's just hockey, I guess.
it was gruesome.
Yeah, it was. It was. It
If
was
people haven't seen the picture, they should. If people haven't seen that picture of his face at like while the overtime was going on and he was getting worked on in the back, they you should follow him on Twitter. It's a wicked picture. I mean, it is wicked.
Yeah, it's pretty good. All right, so I think that's it for today. So maybe next time we'll talk a little bit less blood and guts, and a little more I don't know, shiny happy stuff. So
Shiny hat.
shiny happy hockey. Yes. All right. Thanks for listening, everyone.